Right now, somewhere in a hospital, a patient is receiving an IV drip for dehydration. The bag hanging above them contains sterile water and one mineral, sodium chloride. It costs between $5 and $200 depending on the supplier. It is the global standard. It is what every medical school teaches. It is what the $8 billion IV solutions industry delivers to patients in every developed country on Earth. One mineral. In 1904, a self-taught French physiologist with no medical degree was injecting dying children with something that contained 78, not a synthetic compound, filtered seawater diluted to match the exact mineral composition of human blood. Children who arrived skeletal and gray, hours from death by cholera, were playing within 2 weeks. His cure rate exceeded 90% at a time when untreated cholera killed half of everyone it touched. He treated 500,000 patients across 28 years. A Nobel Prize laureate endorsed his work. French medical schools made his textbook required reading. By 1975, every clinic practicing his therapy had closed. Not because the results stopped, because the therapy contained something no corporation could own, and in the system that replaced it, that single fact was sufficient to remove it from medicine entirely. We went from 78 minerals to 1. We called it standardization, and the industry built on that single mineral is currently worth $8 billion a year and growing. The Brittany Coast, 1897, early morning. A 31-year-old man stands at the waterline watching a bloom of marine plankton move through the shallows. He has no medical degree. The French medical establishment does not know his name. He is self-taught in the way that people become self-taught when the available institutions are not asking the questions that seem most important to them. His name is René Quinton, and he has been measuring this water for months. He has been measuring his own blood for months. The numbers keep arriving at the same place. The mineral composition of seawater, sodium, magnesium, potassium, calcium, and 74 other trace elements, is nearly identical to the fluid inside human cells. Human blood plasma sits at approximately 9 parts mineral per 1,000 parts water. The ocean sits at 35. Dilute the ocean to 9, and you have created a liquid chemically indistinguishable from the fluid bathing every cell in the human body. He writes in his notebook, "The cell is a marine aquarium. We carry the ocean inside us." This is not poetry. It is a measurement. What follows from that measurement will take him 500,000 patients, 69 clinics across 3 countries, a nomination for the Nobel Prize, and ultimately his life. He will die in 1925 at 58 from tuberculosis, one of the conditions his therapy documented success treating in others. A man who spent his life proving the ocean could heal the body, dying of a disease the ocean might have helped him survive. His first test is an experiment that would be illegal today. In 1897, Quinton drains a dog's entire blood volume, replacing it liter by liter with isotonic seawater. Every veterinarian present predicts death. Within days, the dog is eating, running, and behaving normally. Blood replaced with filtered, diluted seawater. The animal recovered completely. By 1904, Paris is in the grip of a cholera outbreak, infants dying by the hundreds. Doctors have nothing effective to offer. Quinton approaches the hospitals with a proposal. Let him inject dying children with isotonic seawater subcutaneously, under the skin where it will be absorbed slowly into the bloodstream. The first child is a 15-month-old boy named Raymond. He weighs 11 pounds. He should weigh 20. His eyes are glassy. His skin is the specific gray experienced nurses recognize as the color of a body that is nearly finished. Quentin injects 200 milliliters of isotonic seawater under the skin of the boy's abdomen and thighs. He returns the next day and injects 200 more. Within 48 hours, the boy's color returns. Within 4 days, he is drinking milk. Within 2 weeks, he is playing. The hospital photographs the transformation. The before and after images enter the medical record, and they are not ambiguous. By 1906, the French government is paying attention. Quentin opens the first marine dispensary in Paris. By 1907, there are 69 dispensaries operating across France, Egypt, and Europe. The cholera cure rate exceeds 90%. By 1914, he is being discussed for a Nobel Prize. Dr. Alexis Carrel, Nobel Prize laureate in Physiology 1912, publicly endorses Quentin's work. The most credentialed endorsement in early 20th century medicine goes on record in support of a therapy built on filtered seawater. Then World War I begins. Quentin serves as a military aviator. The war destroys his health. In 1925, René Quentin dies from tuberculosis. The suppression begins not with a decision, but with an absence. The absence of the man who made the results impossible to dismiss. Quentin's therapy did not disappear because it stopped working. It disappeared because of what it was made of. By the 1930s, the pharmaceutical industry was entering its golden age, antibiotics on the horizon, synthetic drugs promising patentable treatments, the logic of medicine restructuring around intellectual property. A patented compound could be owned, its price controlled, its competitors legally excluded. Quentin's marine plasma presented one structural problem. It was too simple. Harvest seawater, filter it, dilute to isotonic concentration, administer. No proprietary synthesis, no exclusive license. Anyone with access to the ocean could produce it. That made it worthless to an industry whose entire business model rested on owning what it sold. After World War II, anything introduced into the human body was classified as a drug, requiring expensive clinical trials. To gain injectable approval, Quentin's plasma would need trials costing millions of dollars. Since seawater could not be patented, no company would fund them. There was no return on investment for a therapy any coastal community could produce for pennies per liter. Simultaneously, IV saline was standardized as the universal rehydration fluid. Saline was effective, cheap to manufacture, and critically, its entire delivery infrastructure could be patented. IV bags, sterile tubing, automated drip regulators, each component proprietary, each component generating recurring revenue. Saline contained one mineral. Quentin's plasma contained 78. Studies from the 1940s showed isotonic seawater produced better cellular uptake than saline, faster recovery, fewer electrolyte complications. But saline had a supply chain that could be owned. Quentin's therapy did not. The last major dispensary in France closed in 1975. The pharmaceutical industry did not kill Quentin's therapy with a conspiracy. It killed it with a business model, a system where only patentable treatments receive funding, regulatory approval, and medical legitimacy. Natural therapies, regardless of effectiveness, are structurally excluded, not because they do not work, but because they do not generate revenue. The science did not disappear with the dispensaries. In 2004, researchers in Spain published a comparative study, Isotonic Seawater as Effective as IV Saline for Rehydration, with fewer electrolyte imbalances. In 2017, a study in Nicaragua documented oral isotonic seawater successfully treating childhood dehydration, matching WHO oral rehydration standards. In 2014, the Journal of Coastal Zone Management confirmed that deep ocean water harvested from below the thermocline, exactly the depth Quintin specified in 1897, produces measurably superior mineral bioavailability compared to surface water, his empirically developed specification confirmed by modern oceanographic science over a century later. 8 decades of scattered research pointing in the same direction, no large-scale clinical trials, not because the preliminary evidence fails to justify them, because no entity with funding to conduct them has economic incentive to do so. The trial that confirms seawater's effectiveness benefits no shareholder, so it is not funded, and without funded trials, the therapy cannot return to hospitals. The loop is closed by design. Here is the question the evidence has been building toward. Why, with a 2004 peer-reviewed study confirming isotonic seawater as effective as saline with fewer complications, a 2017 study matching WHO childhood rehydration standards, a Nobel laureate's public endorsement, and a 28-year clinical history of 500,000 patients, does no hospital in the developed world offer isotonic seawater as a rehydration option? The gap is not evidence. The gap is not safety. Properly filtered isotonic seawater is chemically closer to human blood than the tap water flowing through hospital plumbing. The gap is that isotonic seawater generates no patent revenue. It cannot be owned. Coastal communities could produce it locally. Disaster relief organizations could deploy it without corporate supply chains. Hospitals in low-income countries could manufacture it for a fraction of imported IV saline costs during the supply shortages that currently cost lives. We replaced a therapy containing 78 minerals with one containing a single salt and called it standardization. We built an $8 billion industry on the substitute. Infant Raymond almost did not survive to become the photograph in the dispensary archive. The difference between those two outcomes was one man willing to look at what the ocean was actually made of. They could not close every door. Laboratoire Quintin has manufactured René Quintin's marine plasma since 1925. For a century without interruption, the same harvesting protocol, the same filtration specification, the same isotonic dilution ratio Quintin developed on the Brittany coast has been maintained in production. Quintin isotonic and Quintin hypertonic are currently distributed as dietary supplements across 25 countries. Athletes in France use them for mineral recovery. Naturopathic physicians in Spain prescribe them for fatigue and mineral depletion. In coastal communities across Latin America, oral seawater therapy has been maintained continuously, passed through generations by people whose distance from pharmaceutical supply chains made the ocean a more reliable resource than what was being shipped to them. The knowledge survived in the product his name still labels and in the communities that never needed a dispensary to understand what the water surrounding them was made of. Here is what you can do with this information today. The most accessible starting point is Quintin isotonic ampules, pre-filtered, pre-diluted, sterile packaged for oral and nasal use, manufactured to Quintin's original specification, available through international supplement retailers without prescription, no injection required. For those in coastal regions, Quintin specified deep ocean water from below the thermocline during active plankton blooms. Surface water from polluted coastal areas does not meet this specification. The dilution ratio is documented. 1 part seawater to 3 parts purified water produces isotonic concentration matching human blood plasma. Any application beyond oral or nasal use belongs in a conversation with a physician familiar with Quintin's documented clinical history. The 2004 Spanish study, the 2017 Nicaraguan study, and Quintin's original clinical photographs are all in the open access record. Quintin's journals are in Paris archives. His textbook is available through academic libraries. Everything he documented is there, waiting for anyone willing to look. Somewhere off the Brittany coast right now, the same upwelling that brought mineral-rich deep water to the surface when Quintin stood measuring it in 1897 is moving through the same water column. The chemistry has not changed. Human blood still carries the same mineral ratios it carried when the first marine organisms that eventually became us were learning to survive in an ocean they would one day carry inside them. What Quinton documented was not a discovery. It was a reminder. The ocean has been here longer than medicine. It will be here longer than the industry that replaced it. What you just heard is one file from an archive that runs deeper than any single video can reach. Every therapy that healed without a patent, every treatment that required no supply chain to function, every cure that worked too well for the wrong industry's business model. They all have a file, and every file has the same ending, buried not because the evidence failed, but because the evidence led somewhere no corporation could follow. This investigation does not close with this report. We have more to offer you with every single day, so sit tight, stay tuned. Subscribe to Forgotten Roots Report. The next file is already ready for you. See you in the next video.